Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we'll make some oat sandwich bread. Yes, this bread is full of oats, and it's also covered in oats. It has a nice subtle flavor, which works really well, along with the fat and the sugar that we're adding to this. But it's not too rich. Perfect for a breakfast sandwich. This one is really easy to make. I know I always say that, but this time I really mean it. When you look at that texture. But if you're not into bread with oats, then check out my playlist with other simple doughs. Click the link in top right corner. But let's get on with this. As always, you'll find a full recipe with all the details down in the description box with metric and imperial units. You'll also find links to the equipment that I use to bake these breads. Now speaking of equipment, this is what we need: a bowl, scales, dough scraper, temperature probe, a brush and a loaf tin. That's it. Now on to the ingredients. You'll need some strong white bread flour, some milk, yeast, salt, sugar, some rolled oats, a little bit of oil. You can use vegetable oil, olive oil, whatever. An egg white mixed with 1 teaspoon of milk for glazing and some extra oats for sprinkling. So the oats are quite dry and tough really. What we want to do before we add them to the dough is soak them in milk. This will soften them up and make it a lot easier for us to work them into the dough. So just mix the oats with the milk, cover them up and pop them in the fridge. Because I'm making this dough by hand, I want this to be cold. You want to soak them for around 12 hours, but you can leave them for longer, it won't hurt. So the next day, my oats are nice and soaked. Let's take the temperature. Like I said, I want these to be cold. And if you would like to learn more about dough temperature control, click the link in top right corner. This is looking good, now we can continue making our dough. Get your bowl, add your soaked oats and milk, and then in with the yeast, salt, sugar and the oil. You want to add everything except the flour. And you want to mix all those ingredients well before adding the flour. The main purpose here is to disperse the ingredients evenly throughout the mix, dissolve any large sugar or salt crystals, and hydrate the yeast. And once you've mixed it well, add in the flour. That's the last ingredient for our dough. Grab your scraper and start mixing. You want to mix this dough in a bowl until there's no more dry flour. And if the scraper's not doing the job, continue on by hand. Mix it until it's one cohesive piece to avoid making a mess on your table. This dough is quite stiff and tough, so I'm going to use a regular kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand, then using the fingers of my left hand, I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand, then turn and repeat. Once you've done this a few times, the motion will become fluent. You want to keep kneading the dough for around 5 minutes. And once it's nice and smooth, it's ready for fermentation. Pop it in your bowl and take the temperature, 25 to 26 degrees Celsius, what we're after. If your dough is cooler, it will take longer. If it's warmer, it will take less time. You gotta keep an eye on it. I'm gonna give it 1 hour for the first proof. And it should start puffing up slightly during this time. And after the first proof, we need to give it a fold. Folding is super simple. Place your dough out on the table, smooth side down, flatten it out, fold the edges over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. And flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, and place it back into your bowl. Folding benefits the dough in a number of ways. It will degas it, it will create extra layers in dough structure, making it stronger, and also equalize the temperature. So if your dough had cooled down on the surface, but still warm in the middle, we are distributing this temperature evenly throughout it, thus giving us an even fermentation. So once you've done your fold, cover your dough up again and leave it to ferment for 1 more hour. So far it's been 2 hours, the dough is puffed up, it's nice and soft, now we can shape it. And this is not the kind of dough that will rise up massively, so you don't have to wait for it to double in size. Right, so to shape it, place your dough out on the table, smooth side down, flatten it out, and then roll it into a log. And once you get towards the bottom, you can fold in the edges, and then just seal it up. This is so simple, a complete beginner could do this easily. And make sure it's nice and straight. You can also flip it upside down and pinch the seam together. And now we can continue on with the next step. And at this point I realized that the loaf tin that I was going to use was a bit too big, so I'm going to use a smaller one. With a bit of parchment paper in the bottom, because I know this one's a bit sticky. Now get some of the remaining oats and sprinkle them on your table. Now roll your dough around in them. Now you could brush the whole loaf with the egg white and water mix, and then cover it completely in oats, all the way around. I didn't do that because, believe it or not, I did not have enough oats. I would not have had enough to cover the whole loaf, so I will only brush the top and use the rest of my oats for covering that. But you know, do it however you want to do it. The egg white and water mix is a great glue for sticking anything to your dough. And you can use it for any kind of bread. You know, if you want to sprinkle some seeds, it will prevent them from falling off later on. And whenever you're doing something like this, I would suggest sprinkling just a little bit more than you think that you would need. And then use your hands to press it in. Yes, some of it may fall off later on after baking, but at least the whole surface will be covered evenly. Same goes for sprinkling seeds on your loaf. I would rather have too much than not enough. Okay, now we're ready for the final fermentation, and this should take around 1.5 to 2 hours. And now you do want it to double in size. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat your oven to 160 degrees Celsius, which is 320 Fahrenheit, with a fan on. And look at how that's puffed up. If it's not risen like this, then just wait longer, don't bake it yet. But if it is, pop it in the oven, 35 to 40 minutes later, it should be ready. Once it's golden brown all over, it's done. And if you're ever unsure of the doneness of your loaf, take the temperature. If it reads higher than 94 degrees, which is 200 Fahrenheit, it's ready. And that goes for any kind of bread. Now let it sit for 5 minutes before removing it from the tin. And depending on what kind of tin you have, it may stick a little bit, like it did for me here. So what you can do is grab a spatula, or even your dough scraper, and just run it around the dough and release it from the tin. But that's how we make the oat sandwich bread. I love this recipe. It's so simple, and the oats give the dough a nice subtle sweet flavor, and the oats on the top have a nice crunch when you eat them. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I make bread baking videos twice a week. Not only recipes, I also teach bread baking principles. I'm your one-stop bread baking shop. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.